gather the resources and means to start the business?
So before we started, we were both doing relatively okay. So we kind of looked at what did we need to subsist. In other words, to maintain our minimum level of lifestyle. And with that, we were able to identify that, with a little bit of luck, we were really okay for 6 months to be able to get going. And so we really were rolling a dice of 6 months kind of thing. And then as I'll get to some of your later answers, it'll explain that really wasn't all that risky. So, we both knew that we could leave and get a new job relatively easily. So that wasn't a big problem. So we looked around, do we want to get external funding? We didn't. Did we want to have a lot of external voices? We didn't. And so that really meant we had to fund it ourselves. And so we funded it ourselves. And so we actually went and as we were starting to finalize the business, we actually finalized before we'd even started the company, a customer that really guaranteed us the revenue to cover off that subsistence cost.
Nice. And so other than monetary resources, were there any other resources that were required for you to start?
So the one thing we did from the beginning was I have a rule that if you're going to start a business, you need to know that you've got a pretty good chance of having 2 or 3 customers, if not nailing the 2 customers before you start it. And so that was a resource from my point of view that we had to have in play. We had a very specific board of advisors that we put in place immediately. And when we were doing it, partly because there was a little bit of issues as to me figuring out what my value model was within the business, because I was a sales guy and Graham was the only delivery guy. So we went through that and those people were there to kind of help. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, one of the best pieces of advice is one of our advisory board members said, because we were going to do like a whole bunch of different things. He said, pick one thing. So if you pick one thing, and we chose data warehousing, then doing research on consulting companies in the data warehousing space in 2005 took about 7 minutes. So there really wasn't a lot of people doing it. And we chose to focus on a very specific technology, which meant there was really nobody else kind of truly specializing in that. And so identifying what the marketplace and what our focus was actually really quite easy, just because of that one piece of advice. And then obviously we work really hard with 2 specific clients who are our early clients, and they actually helped us understand how to drive and show the value, and they were very, very much in support of us starting what we started.
That's awesome. So then as you were starting it, were there specific goals that you had set out for both you and Graham, or milestones that you needed to hit when you were starting the business?
So sadly enough, not really. So the short answer is no. The long answer is that we both knew that we actually had to make money, right? So we both had families and kids, and as Aly knows, my kid is very expensive. So we had to do a bunch of different things. So really it was going to be around that 6-month runway. Did it make sense? Were we going to see that we could get past that first client or the second client or the third client? And then how did we handle that scaling and things like that? So, the starting point was just to be able to give us a little bit of runway to then start focusing on, how are we going to find people, how are we going to manage the clients, and, any of the other stuff that we had.
The next question really allows us to differentiate between an effectual and a causal type of entrepreneur. So what are your thoughts when you're planning and you're taking calculative steps as an entrepreneur, versus just jumping in it and adapting as changes come up?
So as you know, I'm both a little bit fast and a little bit slow on some of those things. So it's really about risk for me. And so when you know what the risks are, both the personal impact, financial impact on others, you can decide what that level of speed you can work on. So when it was just the 2 of us, it was really just our 2
years. When you first started, and you had that initial plan and that initial thought process, did it require multiple iterations or revisions as you were going through it?
So, the short-term plan was relatively easy to manage, but we looked at it pretty closely because, again, there was 2 of us. There was 1 sales guy and 1 delivery guy, so I was overhead. And so we worked pretty hard on how we brought that into a profitable spot relatively quickly. And so therefore, you know, that plan had to change dramatically. We might say, oh, we thought we were going to go down this path, and then this path showed up while we were going down that path. And so they're still in our core area of focus. So let's ramp that one up a little faster. So it was pretty dynamic for the first, I don't know, 6 months. And then we started trying to make it a little more static and try to get closer to an annual plan. It took us until, so we're like 14 years old now. So it took us until about 4 years ago to actually get to a point that we would start trying to plan the year before. And so we've done a couple of those kind of major sort of plans a couple times.
What do you perceive as risk? How do you perceive risk? Do you consider yourself risk averse? Are you a risk taker? And within this process, where does that perception come in?
So first, how do I perceive risk? I'm pretty pragmatic about risk. I treat it like a project manager would, which you go and identify risk, and then you either accept it, you mitigate it, you control it, those sort of things. I'm a very risk tolerant guy, and my business partner, Graham, is not. So, you know, with our agreement, it's kind of anybody can say no to anything, and that actually gives us a nice set of controls and go with that. The other thing that was probably the biggest risk that we had that kind of caused confusion and concern was around the concept of the impact of others. And that's a set of risk that's a little bit more difficult to try and do. So we've never had a layoff at the company. We've had people leave, we've let people go, all those things, but that really weighs a lot upon the two of us. And that's a risk that you can't go and take for granted.
Was there anything you had set in your mind that this is the maximum I'd be willing to forgo or lose before I call it quits?
So I would guess that, I mean, I don't think we really actually had anything. It was really, you know, just monitoring very closely. The thing is, if it would have hurt or that minimum standard of living thing, then we would have probably, that would have been the thing that would have killed us. But all that being said, we actually had in 2008 a really bad year, and we both wrote a fairly significant check into the company.
Was there ever a time where you and Graham were resorting or depending on any partnerships or external entities or other sources for funding?
Yeah, we've never gone and gotten funding from the outside. We've just leveraged our line of credit at the bank. That's really all we've ever done.
And it's, what are your thoughts of uncertainty?
So I think of uncertainty as risk. So really, again, as I said, I'm very risk tolerant. And so if I see something that I see uncertainty to, I just really follow a fairly straightforward risk valuation, and then just try and get in touch or understand the parts that we do know and the parts we don't know, and then decide, do I add some premium for that uncertainty, or do I accept it? And it's something that actually we are pretty good at in terms of bidding on projects or taking on work or things like that to actually deal with that.
What are your thoughts on failure, and how would you define failure?
So in the perfect world, when I'm not too crazy and too stressed out, we really actually want to accept failure. So Dean Kamen was the one who taught us this way back in 2006 or 7, the inventor of the Segway. Fail fast, right? So the faster you can fail and the more you make it known, the faster you can recover. So it's really around not hiding failure so that then it kills you later on, but really trying to get through that faster. So we've had, you know, client delivery failures, products and solutions that didn't work, partnerships that failed. So really for us in the world of data, it's really like you're working in quicksand all the time. So failure is rampant. And if you can't deal with that level of uncertainty and being prepared for failure, then you really shouldn't be in our business. So that's, you know, I actually think it's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. We just need to make it so it's limited and its impact is limited. Failure for me is not meeting what a client's expectation is and what they need to do. You know, we've had clients that their jobs were on the line if we missed a delivery. And so we've never had that kind of failure. And so that, to me, would be the biggest failure and probably the most painful.
How important or how significant is control for you over your business and over outcomes of actions?
So, you know, there's the saying that it's better to be lucky than good. I think we've lived a lot of luck because we've had really good people that have put us in front of a lot of really good situations. We also fluked into choosing that one thing we chose to do ended up being super, super cool. So by the time everybody else was kind of getting into it, we'd already learned our lessons and had gone really far into it. And so we were in some great places with some great customers. And that would be the other thing is that, I mean, you can't plan to end up having a customer that creates a really good relationship that you can basically build a company off.
What other attributes do you would you put your success on, other than the people part?
If you ever come into our office, in our new office, handwritten on the wall is kind of my latest insight about me. And it's about curiosity, thinking in everyone. And so, you know, people who have a natural curiosity will generally dig deeper into certain things.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steven. Thanks a lot.
Steven.
Pleasure talking to you.
All right, ciao guys.
Have a great weekend.
Great talking to you. Good luck.
Thanks.
Take care. Thank you.